I need police. My family. Someone has killed them. An attacker. Is the attacker still inside? No. Are you the only one alive? I think so. My sister is. I think she's breathing. Please, send an ambulance. The dark clothing, the dark makeup, the long hair to cover your face. I have a plan, and it starts with them being dead and you and me being together. Blood is thicker than water. Welcome to Extraordinary Stories Podcast. Hey, how are you? Are you well? Are you good? I am. Thank you if you have been in touch with me recently, and lots of you have. I've had lots of great messages from you, lots of lovely emails, lots of comments on the Facebook group, just really, really lovely stuff. Now, I'm going to have to point this one out, right? Because this is an absolute belter. So, I get this message, right? And it's from Wenda. And Wenda says this. Hi Barry, how are you? Are you good? I am. Wenda says, so I've been listening to the podcast for a week now. I work in a greenhouse, 8 hours a day, right? Good for you, Wenda. Lovely. Anyway, Wenda is sending me this message because she wants to confess something. She listened to a couple of episodes. She got back home and she said to her partner, I just found a podcast that I really like. It's hosted by this brilliant Scottish lady. She's very good. She tells all these wonderful stories. A few days after listening to a couple more stories, Wenda thought, oh, I might as well take to the Facebook group and see what's going on. And then she sees a photo of me and realises I am not a Scottish lady. Wenda says, I'm so embarrassed because I literally thought you were a Scottish woman in your 50s. Wenda, are you having a laugh with me? Come on! Come on! Do you not realise what a Scottish specimen of a man I am? Do you not realise, Wenda, that my man hairy legs are why they invented kilts? Scottish woman. Away you go, Wenda. Anyway, I appreciate your message. I appreciate your apology, but I can assure you I am not a 50-year-old Scottish woman. Which actually, you know, maybe that's useful. Because if this is your first episode of Extraordinary Stories Podcast, maybe you're like, oh, I quite like this woman in her 50s. Thank you for that, Wenda. Alright, so I reached out on the Facebook group and I said, what does family mean to you? Because we're going to talk family for the next few episodes. And my God, as always, you do not disappoint. Ever. I said, how would you describe your family in a few words? Do you love them? Do you hate them? Is your family your dog? Is your family your online community? And I got responses such as, the answer is as loaded as the question. Then I got, my siblings are assholes. I got stories of Catholic nuclear families. You told me about your family and how old-fashioned they are. Words like dysfunctional were coming up. Pictures of people who listen to the podcast with their dogs and saying, this is my family, were coming up. And so for that, I thank you, because we are going to talk family for a couple of episodes, and in this episode I'm going to tell you two stories that are family related, and it's going to become clear really why I'm telling you the two stories as we go. One of them I have absolutely no doubt, the first story you will know. I still think it's interesting to tell whether you know it or you don't know it, but I think you will know it if you've ever listened to any true crime podcast. But it's the comparison with the second story that actually really interests me. So strap yourselves in, get ready, open your gorgeous ears. Well, I don't know if they're gorgeous or not, your ears, but I'm pretty sure that they might be. I've got a friend who he absolutely loves, right, big ears on a man. He absolutely loves it. He always like fancies a guy who's got like big ears because he says it feels like he's holding a trophy. Right, fuck. Sorry, we're barely seconds in and I've already wandered off the point talking about ears. Great, right. I promise, I will stick to the story. Well, come on. We all know I won't stick to the story, but I'll do my best. Alright, are you ready? Okay, let's go. This story, well, it gets given to you in like sound bites. It's almost as if it's given to you in a narrative that is understandable in a way that can be broken down and understood, and that we can all go, oh yeah, I completely understand that. And sometimes I think often what happens is, I've noticed this a lot as I've researched true crime stories, sometimes the more complex a story is, the more redacted the version of it is that you're actually given. You're given quite a sort of, here's the 5 bullet points that you need to know about this story to be able to digest it. There you go. And often it's the complexities in a story that interest me way more than the headlines. You know, so like, I'll give you, like, as an example, right? So I did the Bobbitt family story, right? So the headline is, okay, she cuts his dick off, right? That's the headline. Yeah, but where's the story? Where's the content? So that's what I'm always interested in, is going, what's the stuff that's underneath all of that? So this story here, we've heard it because we know it, but we only ever hear it in these bite-sized headlines. So if we go back in time, we can begin with a man called Mark, a young man. And Mark, as a young man, He lives in Canada, and he meets a woman called Deborah. And the two of them, they fall in love. They meet when they're quite young. They meet when they're about 17 years old, something around like 17, 18 years old. And they meet in... this just makes me laugh. They meet in a part of Canada called Medicine Hat. Medicine Hat? What? What's that about? What a ridiculous name to call anywhere. Medicine Hat. That's like it's like saying, yes, I'm Canadian. I live in Horse Saddle. What? Anyway, my apologies if you're from Medicine Hat, but I just do find that an odd name for a place. So in Medicine Hat, they settle. They live their lives for a few years. They have a lot of fun. And they decide to settle down and have their family. And they want to have 2 children. That's what their real dream is. And so that's what they do. First of all, they have a baby girl. And second, they have a boy. They name the girl Jasmine. And they name the boy Jacob. Now, there was a few years difference between them. So it was like 4 years difference. So Jasmine came first. And then 4 years later, her younger brother, Jacob, was born. Now, the father, Mark, he worked in oil construction. And I'm not going to lie, I don't know if I know entirely what that is. I did look into it a little bit, but actually the more you look into it, the more confusing it gets. And, you know, it's a bit like one of those things where you go like, that person works in pharmaceuticals. Yeah, but that doesn't really say what their job is. Or, that person works in business. Yeah, great. So that doesn't really tell you anything. But yes, oil was his kind of business. So Deborah, the mum, she wasn't at work full time. She mainly stayed at home to look after the kids, and she did earn some money on the side because she had gone and trained as a massage therapist, and her main massage business was, I never know how you say it. Is it Reiki? You know the thing I'm talking about? Reiki. I think it's Reiki. I'm pretty sure it's the Japanese thing where you like put your hands or your fingers on like somebody's scalp and you like rub their scalp about, and then you like put a bit of oil on them or something maybe for a minute, and then you say namaste, and then you move away. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Now there's something worth knowing about Deborah and Mark, and that is this. They were both recovering alcoholics. In their earlier years, they had partied hard. They had really both come through an addiction with alcohol. They'd gone through the AA program and they had shared their experience together. Now the reason I'm saying that that's important to know is that's lots of people in the world who've come through that, and I congratulate and celebrate anybody who can come through AA. Well done. I really do. But what's interesting is, obviously then as parents, they're very aware that they've had experiences, they've done things, they've lived a life. And what we're going to get to here is we're going to arrive at this kind of thing of, you know, like when teenagers, and we're probably all were guilty of it at the point when we were teenagers. And if you are a teenager listening, I hope you're on the sort of upper end of teenager listening, because the stories are quite dark. We've all had that thing when you're a teenager of thinking you're the first person who's ever experienced anything, or life is the most unjust to you that it's ever been in the world. But I think it's really interesting that these two parents, they had been through stuff. You know, they had absolutely had to look internally at themselves, which is what a lot of AA is about. It's about looking at you, it's about looking internally. And I think it's just really interesting that they have been through that, and that they have as you're going to learn, a daughter who goes through that exact thing I'm talking about. That sort of, no one understands me in the world. Nobody has ever lived the life that I've had to live. No one's ever had to live this injustice. So, Jasmine, their daughter, their firstborn, she is a very bright young girl, and she's a real outdoors type in her early years. Medicine Hat, still can't go over the name, is it's a really like sunny place. I think it gets called like the sunniest place in Canada. So there's lots to do to go outdoors. So in 2006, Jasmine was 12 years old. Her younger brother Jacob would have been 8, and her parents were in their very early to mid 40s. And this phase that I'm talking about with teenagers, Jasmine hits it. It's the phase that all parents must surely dread. Now, 2006, if you think back, what was big at the time? Well, I'll tell you, it was the whole goth movement. It was the big goth time for teenagers, and I remember it so bloody vividly from like living in Glasgow. I mean, by 2006 I wasn't a teenager, so I was way beyond it. And actually, to be fair, I don't really think it would ever have been for me, but just I remember it being like this almost epidemic of people who wanted to wear the dark clothing, the long dark hair to cover their face, the makeup, big long leather jackets. What was that film, The Crow? Like the big long leather jacket that he wears in it. It's just like everyone wanted to look like this for a while. And it was about sort of being into alternative things in life, and it was about being like, I'm a teenager, but I'm not afraid to dabble in my dark side and in the darker side of life and of humanity. And that's fine. If you want to be into that, that's fine. But it's just that there was this huge wave of it. I'm not judging. I'm really not judging it at all. And if you were a goth and you are a goth who's listening, I've probably just said that, and it is probably the worst description of it ever. It's just, it just was never a thing that was ever for me. I was more sort of hot pink t-shirts and pop music than I ever was dark lipstick and leather jackets. So here is the first of many points, my friends, that we are going to find where this story gets fed to us in little tiny sound bites. Jasmine goes from, I'm an outdoorsy 12-year-old Canadian happy 12-year-old, and now I'm a goth. And suddenly her parents don't recognise her anymore. They can't get through to her. They find that she becomes disconnected from them. But then that's a lot of teenage behaviour, isn't it? Surely a lot of teenage behaviour is just about being a bit disconnected from your parents. Her interests, the things that she is into, well, it's all quite visible on her MySpace. So on her MySpace, Jasmine is 12 years old, but she changes her age to 16 years old. Now, immediately dangerous. On her profile, she talks about being bisexual. She talks about having a bloodlust and a desire to kill. She tries to talk as if she is an adult. And let me just make this one part of the story very clear, because this is where we get told it differently. Jasmine is 12 years old. She created this MySpace herself. She did it herself. She said those things about herself, about being into the dark side of life and having a bloodlust. No one made her do it. That information gets twisted, and I just want to be really clear about that. That was her choice to join this website. She joins something called Vampire Freaks. And this is for people who believe in vampires. Oh my god. I mean, what is all this Twilight pish? I don't get it. I mean, right, I was too old for the whole Twilight thing, but I'm like, what is all this? Why? Why do people get obsessed with like all this, like, I'm dying in the moonlight for someone, and all this nonsense of, oh, I slept with a werewolf and now she's a vampire, and oh, what is going on? Why can't kids just watch Mary Poppins and Grease and just be done with it? That's all I've got to say on the matter. Why can't they just do that? Anyway, it's on one of these sites, be it Vampire Freaks or MySpace or somewhere, that 12-year-old Jasmine meets Jeremy Stink. Now, Jeremy, a quick look at his life. Jeremy had dropped out of high school. He lived in a trailer park. He liked to take a lot of drugs. He referred to himself as a 300-year-old werewolf. I mean, okay. I mean, I'm sure. Okay. Jeremy, whatever, right? You do you, but for fuck's sake, man. You're not a 300-year-old werewolf. You're not. But here's the most important thing. Jeremy was 23 when he began chatting with the 12-year-old Jasmine. On his profile, he says he likes kinky sex, knives and blades, blood. The two of them begin to chat online, and before too long, they meet in person. They meet at a gig that's happening in Medicine Hat. It's not necessarily a meeting where they meet because they designed it to happen that way. It's just that kind of what happens is they both happen to be in the same place at the same time. However, that doesn't matter because immediately they connect. Right, I know what you're thinking. Well, actually, maybe I don't know what you're thinking. What are you thinking? Right, I'll leave a small gap. You tell me what you're thinking. Those are all really good points. I suppose the main thing I'm thinking about is the fact that he's 23 and she's 12, although she's telling everyone she's 16. What she has kind of done here, Jasmine, is she has had an entire makeover in that she's dyed her hair really dark, she's wearing loads of makeup, and I'm not going to lie, if you looked at a picture of her... Hang on, actually, no, I was going to say you would think she was 16. I wouldn't. I would say she looks maybe more 14. I don't know. It's a really hard time to tell what she looks very Avril Lavigne. You know that phase. She looks a bit that kind of Avril Lavigne dark makeup, and all that it does is massively confuses the age of someone. However, what that does not take away from is that Jeremy is 23. There is no fucking way in the world you're telling me that this guy believes her to be an adult. Come on. He needs, at this moment, to just step away from everything. And he doesn't. He doesn't do that. Instead, the two of them begin a relationship. Now, it's not long before Mark and Deborah, Jasmine's parents, go, no, 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 hold the fucking bus here. You cannot have a boyfriend who is 23 years old. No, it's just not happening. I mean, imagine the awkwardness of that conversation. So she's gone through this transformation and she has to actually say, yeah, I've got a boyfriend who's 23 and believes he's a 300-year-old werewolf. Okay, sure. If that was my daughter, I would be locking her in a room and saying, okay, see you when you're 18 and you're normal. Okay, bye. No, I wouldn't, obviously, because then I'd end up on a true crime podcast. But seriously, they are very, very concerned about this. And Mark and Deborah, they do their absolute best to stop the relationship. But what do you do? What do you actually do? Other than sort of ground her and say, well, no, you can't go here and you can't go there. What they don't take away, and this was 2005-6, so maybe they didn't really think of it, as they don't take away the online communication between the two of them. So Jeremy and Jasmine, they're still communicating online, and this is for me another moment where the story gets really twisted. We will be told that Jeremy was leading on the online communication towards what they were going to do. The truth is, it was actually Jasmine who began the very, very dangerous dialogue with him, where she started talking about killing people. She was moaning that she was miserable in her home and her parents, they were to blame, and that she wanted Jeremy to help her escape her terrible situation. I mean, oh, Jasmine, you're 12 right now, and you wouldn't know it, right? You wouldn't know it because you maybe don't see the outside world, but there are kids at your age who are living on the streets and eating out of bins and wearing dirty clothes. That's a terrible situation. This is not a terrible situation. Every teenager feels like the world doesn't understand them. But she's sending messages to a 23-year-old man where she's saying, I want to kill. I want blood. Jasmine writes to Jeremy, I need to get rid of them. I have a plan. It starts with them dying, and it ends with you and me living together. Jeremy writes to Jasmine, we need to get creative with the details of how we are going to kill them. Jeremy writes to Jasmine, their throats I want slit. Finally, there shall be silence. They shall pay for their ignorance with their blood, and it will be spilt. Their blood shall be my payment. Yeah, alright, fucking Shakespeare. Calm down. Calm the fuck down. Stop talking about spilt blood. Who does he think he is, man? Oh my god. I know you're a 300-year-old werewolf, but calm down with your whole their blood shall be my payment. Yeah, right. Who do you think you are, Richard III? Chill out, mate. Anyway, so this is April 2006. And we get to really what is the main headline in the story. Jasmine and Jeremy manage to sneak away from their lives and they get an evening together. And they watch the film Natural Born Killers. According to all of the rhetoric that we get, this is when they decide that they must act on their hatred of Jasmine's mother and father. Watching this film apparently fills them with a bloodlust. I don't know. Maybe it did. Maybe it did. Maybe it didn't. I have trouble. I have real trouble with this idea that watching violence makes you violent. I think it's a way more complex issue than we are presented with in the way that we're presented with it. So courts and lawyers, they love to use it. They bloody love it. Oh, well, so-and-so turned into a serial killer because they watched a film about Ted Bundy. Well, I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. So if what Jasmine and Jeremy do next is a result of watching Natural Born Killers, then I stand corrected. Then I'll say I'm wrong. And I'll say that maybe then the tragedy that's about to unfold wouldn't have happened if they had just watched Grease. They'd be all like, we go together like lemon, 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 sitting in their goth clothes singing, you're the one that I want, you are the one I want. But no, we're meant to believe that actually they watched Natural Born Killers, and the following day this happens. The following evening, when the Richardson house sleeps, that's Dad Mark in his bed, Mother Deborah lying next to him in bed, and 8-year-old Jacob in his bedroom, there begins a disturbance downstairs. And it wakes Deborah. She hears it in her sleep, and she thinks it's coming from the kitchen, and so she goes downstairs. And when she goes down to investigate, there's a man standing in her kitchen. The man produces a knife, and Deborah screams loudly and she tries to run. But before she can get anywhere, the man stabs her 12 times, and she falls down dead. This noise, it wakes up husband Mark, who hears this commotion, and he grabs the nearest thing that he can find, which is a screwdriver, and he runs downstairs. But Mark is met by the same man who stabs him to death. The dead bodies of Mark and Deborah are dragged by the killer into the basement of the house. And so now, that leaves only one family member alive in the house, and that is 8-year-old Jacob. And 8-year-old Jacob is upstairs in his room. But he's not alone in his room. He's with his sister, Jasmine. Now, the 8-year-old, he hears the screams from downstairs, and he knows something terrible has happened. And then a man bursts in to his room, and it's the man from downstairs. 8-year-old Jacob, he tries to run out of the room, but before he can get anywhere, he's dragged back by his sister Jasmine. Jacob is forced onto the bed by Jeremy, and Jasmine produces a knife. She cuts her 8-year-old brother's throat from ear to ear as he lays on the bed. Once they are completely sure that he is dead, Jasmine and Jeremy, they leave the Richardson family home and they go to a nearby late night cafe where they order some food. Neither Jasmine or Jeremy return to the crime scene. The following day, a friend of Jacob's comes to the house. Just comes to see if Jacob wants to play outdoors. So he rings the bell and he gets no answer. He looks around, and when he looks into the house, he he sees like a lot of blood, and he runs home and he tells his parents, and then police are called. The house is broken into by police, and police find 3 dead bodies of the Richardson family. Now, they very quickly work out that there are actually 4 members of this family. There's 3 dead bodies, and they immediately jump to the conclusion that the 12-year-old daughter has been kidnapped by the killer. Police will say it never crossed anyone's mind that she might have played a part in this. We just never thought that she might have had anything to do with it. So for 2 days, police are struggling to work out what the hell has actually happened here. What they can determine is they can work out basically what I just told you there. They can work out that Deborah must have died first, and then that Mark, the husband, came downstairs, and then that Jacob upstairs was the last to be killed. So they can do all that from blood splatter, from footprints. They can work all of that out, but there's no sign of Jasmine, the 12-year-old daughter, and the search for her is on. I mean, the search is everywhere, but the search is also online, and it's then that police find her posts on Vampire Freaks, on her MySpace messages, and it's then that they see the online communication between her and Jeremy, and they know at this point that they have a family murder on their hands. So police track her down quite quickly. She is hiding out with Jeremy in his trailer park home, and they're both arrested. I don't want to feel like I'm hammering home at the same point, but I will hammer it home one more time. She is 12. She is actually 12. Picture a 12-year-old in your life, and here she is. She's being arrested and accused of triple murder, of killing her entire family. Fucking 12. Oh. So a trial has to begin, obviously. And it's going to be tricky because, you see, she's a juvenile and he is an adult. So there's no way in the world that they can both be tried in the same way. That can't possibly happen. They may have both been complicit in what happened. Maybe one of them was leaning for it slightly more than the other. Who knows? But that's for a court to untangle and decide. But basically, the rules of it are, well, she's 12 and he's 23. So they have to be tried differently and separately. In court, she is only ever referred to as JR. Her real name can't be given because of her age. And when the whole thing gets pulled apart by lawyers, it comes down to this. Jasmine says, I hypothetically talked about killing my family, but I never intended on going through with it. Jeremy says, when your soulmate is in pain and it's her family causing this pain, then you have to get rid of them. The lawyer who was prosecuting is able to prove that Jasmine has been in this story every bit as responsible as Jeremy. She was the one who left the back door open for him to be able to get into the house to start those murders. She was the one who was writing posts to him that said, I want them dead. So, they're both charged with 3 counts of murder, and they're both found guilty. And now what we get to is it's the next big headline we always see in this case. Jeremy is given life in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years. And the sentence for Jasmine is 6 years in juvenile prison with 4 years of supervision in the community. Now that means, because of her age, at the time of the murders, she actually only serves 6 years in prison. And it's not really prison, it's juvenile. Yeah, it's still prison, but you know what I mean, it's juvenile prison. And then 4 years in the community, so by the age of 22, she is free. She's free. She's given a new identity by the Canadian government. She's placed in a secret location somewhere in Canada. And so, Jasmine Richardson today still lives in Canada, and no one knows her real identity. And the bodies of Mark, Deborah, and Jacob lie in a graveyard in Medicine Hat. Now, I said earlier you will know this story, and I'm pretty sure you do. I'm pretty sure it's not the first time you've heard the Jasmine Richardson story, and it was so sensational. But what I think is really important in it is we're given lots of the sort of these reasons of like, oh, you know, she wants to be a goth. She wanted to kind of understand what bloodlust was all about. And then, oh, Jeremy, the boyfriend who was 23, came on the scene. And these are all the... And we're given lots of, like, things that are supposed to help us understand this story. You know, it's felt like it's meant to make quite coherent sense if we get it in little bullet points. It's the classic good girl gone bad story, isn't it? Oh, she's 12 years old, she's all sunshine and smiles, and then becomes a goth, meets a dangerous man, watches natural born killers, and then kills her family. And everything you ever read or ever watch about Jasmine Richardson, there is very little other than that to offer. But really, when it comes down to it, what is the actual reason? Is it that her parents wouldn't let her date a 300-year-old werewolf? I don't know. Is it that? Is it that she actually had such teenage angst and such teenage stress and worry that death was the only way out? Is it that Jeremy actually really was the driving force behind it? Don't know. We'll probably never know the reason. But what we do have is we have a way to digest that story. I said there were 2 stories in this episode, and there are. And this is the second. And I wanted to look at this one almost slightly in opposition to the Jasmine Richardson story. So, if you are ready, here is the second story in this episode. Let's jump to South Africa, to Cape Town, and a very, very rich part of Cape Town. It's one of the, like, wine making, vineyardy areas. It's a very rich place called Stellenbosch. Don't know how a South African person would say Stellenbosch. Steenbosch? Well, yeah, I think that was it. I think nailed it. It's where we find the Van Breda family. Now, the Van Bredas are South African, but they have for many years been living in Australia. But they are from South Africa. Now, they're raised South African, but the father of the family, Martin, he and his wife Teresa, they moved to Australia because that's where his work is. He works for one of these like big sort of fancy pants, mega money real estate companies. So the Van Bredas are not short of a penny or two. They really are not. There's 3 children. There's 2 sons, there's 1 daughter. And all of these kids, I mean, they're well used to having the nice things in life. They've gone on skiing trips since they were very young, always got nice clothing. The Breda family was reportedly worth $17 million. $17 million. I'm not even worth £17. I haven't even got £17 in my bank account, never mind. Worth 17 million anyway. They get described as a very close-knit family. So when the family move from Australia back to South Africa, there's only one person who doesn't come with them, and that is son Henry, who is 19 years old. Now, Henry stays in Australia, but that's because Henry was studying engineering at university. And so he stays there for a year, whilst the Van Bredas go and set themselves up in Cape Town. However, when Henry has finished his studies, he comes to Cape Town, and now the family are all living together. Now, Henry has a girlfriend. She has the best name ever. Her name is Danielle Jans van Rensberg. Why is everything called Van something in these places? What's going on? I don't understand. So the entire Van Breda family are at home in January 2015, when in the middle of the night there is a phone call placed to police. It's 20-year-old Henry, and he says, "I need police. My family. Someone has killed them. An attacker." The operator asks, "Is the attacker still inside?" He says, "No." The operator asks, "Are you the only one alive?" And he says, "No, I think my sister is breathing. Please send an ambulance." So police arrive at the scene, and what they find Henry. He is outside of the property. He's lying like on the grass of the front lawn. He's wearing boxer shorts that are covered in blood, and he is wearing white socks. Inside, police discover the most horrific sight. There is blood dripping down the walls. There is an axe and a knife that are covered in blood. The body of the father, Martin, is found with axe wounds across his back and his head, slumped over the body of Henry's brother, who has also been axed to death. Henry's mother, Teresa, has been axed in the face and in the body, and then stabbed. And now the only other person in the house is Marley, 16 years old, Henry's younger teenage sister, who appears to be breathing, although she has 5 axe wounds to the head. Henry himself, he has wounds across his chest and his legs. Now, both Henry and Marley, they're taken straight to hospital in an attempt to save them. These poor paramedics that had to walk in and find that scene. Do you know, one of them, right, had to take 6 months off work because although he was an experienced paramedic, he'd seen lots in his life. This man was like in his 50s. He had seen some stuff. He said the scene was the most devastating thing he had ever seen. bodies axed to death. He just couldn't handle it, and it caused him a breakdown. So this is major shock when this happens. And, go back to what I was just saying a second ago. This isn't happening in a poor part of South Africa. This isn't happening in a bit where lots of crime and lots of violence happens. No. This is happening in swanky, rich, gated communities where the houses are worth like 5.20 million or whatever. Do you know what I mean? You're talking like big fancy houses. You're not talking like a little slum down the street where crime happens. No, not at all. So when police speak to Henry's the only one that can offer any kind of story. He says a man broke in and he axed the family to death, but I managed to defend myself. And they say, okay, right, well, can you describe the man? And he says, yeah, he was tall, he was black, he was wearing a t-shirt. Okay, right? Is there anything else you can tell us? No, there's not much. There's not much really that Henry can offer. They say, alright Henry, talk us through actually what happened. He says, right, I woke up to the sound of screaming and I went out into the hall and there was a crazy man with an axe. I tried to stop him as he went to kill my sister Marley, but it was too late for the rest of the family. Police say, what do you mean you tried to stop him? He says, well, I jumped in front of Marley's body as he went for her with the axe. And they say, right, okay, well, the thing is, she's got 5 axe wounds in her head, and you've got some wounds on your body, but they don't look like axe marks. So, are you sure you jumped in front of her? And he says, yeah, no, I definitely did. Then they say to him, okay, so then did you just call police straight away? He says, no, I called my girlfriend, but she didn't pick up. Alright then, why are you calling your girlfriend? Why are you not calling police? He says, I was falling in and out of consciousness and I didn't know what the best thing to do was. My wounds were so bad that I was losing my state of mind. Okay. Let's talk about Henry's wounds. Right, now, not to be graphic, right? But after his dad had died from blows from an axe wound, Henry's wounds, I hate to say, they look a little bit like you had, fallen out of a tree and scratched yourself on some branches. So for police, there is major suspicion, because they're looking at it and they're going, the brutality that's happened in the rest of your house just does not match what's going on with your body. This doesn't make any sense. Right, so they look a bit deeper into Henry, and they realise that actually Henry had, for a couple of years, struggled with a bit of drug addiction. He was into tech. That's street speak for crystal meth. Yeah, I know, I'm so cool. No one calls it crystal meth anymore, it's actually called tech. So, if you want the street lingo, then come to Extraordinary Stories, because that's where you'll get it, because I'm so cool. Literally, not true. I literally looked it up and went, tech? What the fuck is tech? What does that mean? Had to actual Google tech Urban Dictionary to find out that it was just crystal meth. But the thing is, that was all over for Henry, the drug use. For the police, they're looking at it and they're going, is Henry the killer here? Well, they certainly think so. And so Henry very quickly has to get a lawyer. This I love and I find so fascinating and so telling. Marley, the sister who survived, she was in the hospital for nearly 5 months. She nearly lost her hearing from the attacks. And in the time that she was recovering, she did not want Henry anywhere near her hospital room. She wanted a ban on Henry being allowed anywhere near her. The brother and the sister, they never saw each other again. Police mount a case against Henry and they say, look, we can either arrest you or you can come in willingly. And he says, right, okay, I'll come in willingly, but I'm not guilty. He holds on to this story that it was a man who broke in with an axe. And, well, then the trial arrives. The trial is a fucking palaver. It's such a joke. Henry is advised, don't get up on the witness stand. Whatever you do, do not get up on the witness stand because it won't help you. Does Henry listen? No, he doesn't. In court, this is so awkward. And you can actually watch this on YouTube. I urge you to go and find it. He tries to reenact the battle with the axe, with a fake, he uses like a prop axe. Oh, it's really bloody awkward. It's really terrible. He falters when he's questions. He keeps undermining his own story all the time. Again, very telling. His sister Marley, she won't attend court because she doesn't want to be in a courtroom with her brother. So when it all shakes down and when it all comes to push and shove, the judge says this: you have acted in a most brutal and cruel way. The sentencing of life in prison for the murders of your mother, father and brother were inescapable for you. I love that. I love the way that judge uses the word inescapable. Love it. Henry van Breda remains in prison until this very day, and will for a very long time. His girlfriend to this day will say he's not guilty. Family will say he's not guilty. His own sister, who survived the axe attack, refuses to say anything, and she will not see her brother. That's because it's 99% chance is that the fucking last time she saw her brother, he was coming at her with an axe. Now why? And this is the thing I'm trying to get to. Tell me why. As the Backstreet Boys once said, tell me why ain't nothing but... right, I'm not looking for a concrete answer. But the thing is, I suppose this is why these two stories interest me. We're given all these really concrete and detailed reasons for Jasmine Richardson. Oh, it was the goth thing. Oh, it was the got a boyfriend. Henry van Breda, the major thing that circles around this story is why? And maybe, and I think probably, we will never know with Henry van Breda why he axed his family to death. Jasmine Richardson, we might have more of an idea in that we're dealing with teenage angst. Who knows? And so, when I asked on the Facebook group, talk to me about your family, and you said things like, I'm close with my family, but we have different values. Or you said, my family is old-fashioned. Or you said that they were dysfunctional. remember that you're not in a place where you're Jasmine Richardson or you're Henry and you're ready to kill them. And so ends the story. Alright, well, hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you very much for listening. As always, as I always end by saying, please join the Facebook group. It's bloody fabulous. It's a lovely place to be. Yeah, I'm also on Twitter. I'm on Instagram if you want to get in touch. So please do that. Please say hi. There's also the merchandise if you would like to get some Extraordinary Stories podcast merchandise, because it's pretty sexy. Oh, it's pretty sexy. It's pretty sexy stuff. Yeah. Also, just thank you for helping out the podcast. I really do appreciate the reviews, and I really appreciate the help. And it's a bit of an odd one for me, because I don't really like, oh god, I'm so bored of myself saying this same statement, but I don't really like to, know that the podcast is doing well or isn't doing well, but I get these kind of update things, and it's really nice because under Apple Podcasts, which is the kind of major bigger distributor, blah blah blah, very boring, but that's the major bigger kind of reading of how podcast charts work, etc, etc. There's a section called personal journals, which is like a little section of podcasts, and for the past 3 months now I've been in the top 100 in America, USA and Great Britain, and I'm in there with some pretty fucking highbrow podcasts that are pretty fucking amazing. Some like real big hitters. So thank you. And the only reason that happens is because you write reviews, and because you listen to the podcast, and because you download it. So yeah. Anyway, I know that bit at the end of a podcast tends to get a little bit boring when people do that. So I'm going to quit that, and I'm going to say I'm out of here. I have a truly bonkers new family story coming for you, and it will be with you very soon. It's a really, really strange one. I'm actually still struggling to get my head around it myself, so I need to get my head around it before I can even try and tell it. So yeah, so in the meantime, just, join the Facebook group, say hi on Twitter, send me an email, send me a whatever, I don't know, something in the post. Yeah, great. Okay, so again, I will get better at leaving the podcast, because it's so shit that I cannot ever just be like, right, see you later, bye, the podcast is finished. Bye, the podcast is finished. Okay. Okay. Goodbye.
It didn't affect me really one way or the other. I would imagine from the look on his face, let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over. Let's get it on. Let's do it. Let's get it over.